War Eagle Auburn family, welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we get together and we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn family spectrum. Always heavy on the sports here, but if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. I am on location with a very old set of microphones, as you can even tell in the picture. I'm telling how awkward they look on me right now. Anyway, we're on the road here. We're traveling this weekend to visit some family, and of course, as luck would have it, we would have some news break that we needed to discuss here on a live stream. So I'm here today with you on this edition of E2C Network Live to talk mainly about what's in the headline for this video of Sharife Cooper declaring for the NBA draft. But as always, we can talk about anything that's on your mind in the Auburn family spectrum. And as we go throughout the live stream, I do appreciate your patience with any technical difficulties, strange audio, different setup and format that you're used to if you're a regular here on this channel, as we're just kind of working with what we got here to do something like this. I would always have wanted to not, have this happen while I'm traveling, but hey, there you go. Yes, it does look like an Xbox 360 mic because it's not. It's a Logitech. It's like the most basic. When I started podcasting eons ago, I needed some type of microphone better than just talking, and then this is what I started with, and then moved on to something else. So this is kind of like my backup, and it is my travel mic. Anyway, so there you go. So you're dealing with that. So let me know how the stream is throughout this. If you need me to adjust audio, can't do much with the Wi-Fi, but want to hope this will be a good experience for all of you as we go throughout the stream today. As you're coming in, smash that like button so we can let other people know that we are live discussing this big breaking news, because it is a little bit of an important topic for Auburn Tiger fans, especially those who are Auburn basketball fans. Something that we've been anticipating for quite some time. As we go through the show, obviously feel free to post questions, comments, all that good stuff. This is a live stream. It's always more fun when you're interactive, so I want to encourage you to do that. Pre-show stuff, as always, want to share with you what you can do to help support what we're doing here. So many of you have been so gracious to do this in so many different ways. All of these links are in the very top of the chat, but also there are down in the description video as well if you need to access them that way. You can support us through joining the E2C Network Booster Club for as little as $1 a month. You get a lot at that $1 level, so go check that out. PayPal, you can buy our logo and some other gear at TeePublic, but you can just listen to the podcast. Speaking of which, what I've pinned in the top of the chat window is our link to our specific podcast feed for the Auburn Roots series. Now, you can do the main feed, that's in there as well. But the pinned one is only the Auburn Roots series, where we allow people to come on and tell their Auburn stories. Anybody. We've had the general fan. We've had Coach Sonny Smith. We've had Jarris McIntyre come on and tell their Auburn Roots. Go check that out. There's a brand new one today, episode 27. Cindy Terry, who's one of the group of individuals who bring the banner that you see at Tiger Walk. For you to congregate around when you're there slapping hands and fives with everybody. Hopefully we'll all be able to do that this year. But you can learn the story about how that came to fruition from her, and as she tells the rest of her Auburn roots. So hope you'll go check that out. So that's all the stuff I wanted to share with you at the beginning of the show. Let's see. A little bit harsh, but true GA fan says, stupid move, Sharife. I don't know that it's necessarily a stupid move. Is it one that we emotionally think is stupid because we'd love to have him around? Yes. But I trust that Sharife has the right people in his ear. Appreciate you giving me a heads up on the audio being fine. Always nervous about doing this stuff on the road. Always want to kind of try to do it the best quality I can and at the best, highest level we can. But sometimes you got to just make with what you can. Cooper should have came back. He's not even ready for the G League. Good luck to him, though. So, guys, I get it. It's a bit of a shock. And well, let me back up a second here. Not just me, but several people have been warning you. Coach Pearl warned you that several people were going to declare for the draft. In no world, no possibility was that not going to be a reality that surfaced with Sharife Cooper not declaring for the draft. So if you're shocked that he declared for the draft, I don't know what to tell you, because we've been warning you about that since he got here, really, since he stepped footed on but became a reality after you see that the hype was real. So if you're shocked today that he declared for the NBA draft, I can't help you in any way. If you're shocked that he declared for the draft and that he signed with an agent, or at least has intentions to sign with an agent, I don't know if it's official yet, that I can get a little bit on board with. I will say that I think it's interesting that Sharife Cooper is reportedly already closed the door, so to speak. If you remember when JT Thor declared for the draft, he made it very clear that he had not signed yet. But when he said farewell in his post, he even kind of made it seem like there was some finality to it, but he still left the door open. There is no door open at this point, especially if he signs with an agent. That is my understanding. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I do believe that the door is completely closed as far as I know with Sharife Cooper. So if you're shocked about that, I will say that I kind of fall more into your camp. I thought it would have been a little bit more wise on his part to go to the draft and see what happens, or just get the evaluation part of it done. But unfortunately, he has made the decision that, and I would say that he probably has the best information possible to go far into the draft. So what does this mean for Auburn fans? It means a couple things. It means we're shocked, we're dismayed, we're a little bit frustrated because of what might have been. I think it was, I may be misquoting this. Maybe it was Allie Davidson on Twitter who posted. I think it was a great thought process. He said, I used to always ask the question, what might have been with Isaac Okoro? Now I've got two scenarios. What might have been if we had had Sharife Cooper for an entire season with everybody else. So it's a little bit frustrating. Excuse me. Imagine Okiki, Okoro, and Cooper. I don't know how you're supposed to even build a basketball team. Well, this is how things are done. So I hate to break it to you, but this is what all of the premier programs deal with. I don't know if that's what you meant by that, but that's kind of the way I took it. One and dones are the way it goes in college basketball for the premier programs. Two and dones, or very short stints, is what happens a lot of the time. It's something that comes with the territory. A lot of these players are really considering going pro anyway, and so the fact that you even get them for 1 year is pretty much a miracle, in and of itself. Thank you guys so much for those of you who are hitting the like button too. Appreciate that. Unbeaten Lake's ready to move on from this. It says, I've heard we're in the lead for Taiwashington. Tai, is that how you say it? Or is it Taiwashington or Taiwashington? This probably increases our chances of getting him. So that's one way to look at it. I think you can. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of speculation on who might be coming in guard-wise for Auburn. Jasper, I think his name has already come in. There's the Pinson from Missouri. This probably would help that type of, they'll probably help with our case there. So there are good things that can come out of this situation, unfortunately, as much as we're frustrated not to see him around. Think we do get Washington. If he doesn't sign with an agent, he can come back. So, but I think what everybody is reporting here, that he is intending to sign with an agent, right? That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm seeing. That doesn't mean that anything's done yet. Obviously, things can change. But that should tell you something about where Sharife Cooper's head is at. If it's common knowledge that he's going to sign with an agent, then yeah, he probably will. The thumbnail made me oh my goodness, I know it's tough news to talk about here. I do miss Okiki and Okoro as well, but I love. Here's something, and I know I'm bouncing all over the place right now with this, but that's kind of what we do here on these live streams. I'm trying to give you guys a silver lining on this as well. When in Auburn recent history have you been able to look at the NBA and say, wow, look at our people they're playing? Hasn't happened. Not since Marquise Daniels. No, it hasn't. So now you've got Okiki and Okoro, which it feels like every other night one of them's doing something big in the NBA. And then Jared Harper is fighting real hard to get into playing time, and I think he's still in that two-way deal and stuff like that. So there's good that comes with the bad out of all that. I'm not just trying to be a Pollyanna, but that's the reality of the situation we find ourselves in. Let's see. I don't think Eddie's got a great point. I don't think Bruce would let Cooper fully go in without the right information. I believe that as well. Bruce has been up front about this and said that he wants to do what's best for these guys financially, but future-wise as well. And I think if it makes sense to go this year, Bruce was not going to do things to hinder him from going. Bruce understands, and I hope us as the Auburn family are starting to understand as well, that building a program isn't just keeping people there, but it's putting them in a position post to be successful, whether that's on or off the court. Obviously, very important off on the court in terms of going to the NBA and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different angles you can take on this news today. It doesn't take away the fact that it's frustrating, it's disappointing. For in some ways, it is shocking, as I opened up saying, if you're shocked that he declared for the draft, you shouldn't be. But if you're just shocked that he has already said he's signing with an agent, that I can get a little bit more on board with. All right, so let's poll the room here. Some of you have already shared that, but quick yes or no to this question: were you shocked that he declared and signed for an agent, decided to go sign with an agent? Yes or no? Up or down or whatever. Well, don't up or down the video. Up it if you'd like. Stan, what's going on? By the way, I forgot to say this as well at the beginning. Being on the road has gotten me all out of whack here. It says, War Eagle from Sanford, Florida. So go ahead and post where you're watching from. City, state, international, all that good stuff. Want to know where the Auburn family is calling in from today. Speaking of calling in, I need to investigate using the call-in option. Is that something that you'd all like to utilize here? Would you call in onto a show? I know some of you do it on traditional radio shows, but if you'd be interested in that, let me know. I think I have an option, to make that work. All right. So I set the precedence here that Sharife Cooper, if he was going to go in the NBA draft and leave Auburn, he needed to take a couple things into consideration. A, what's the future look like for the team potential wise for winning a championship? Pretty high. So if that, not winning a championship, competing for a championship. So if that's a high likelihood, there's got to be something pretty sweet the other way for him to go. Another angle to look as to why Sharife Cooper would decide to leave or not would be because the draft class for guards, and more specifically point guards this year, is probably in a better situation for him this year than maybe the next year. Because I think we can all agree Sharife Cooper was really only going to stay for one more year, barring him having the worst possible year, which Auburn wouldn't want anyway, to have a player hurt themselves in that way in their draft stock, because it not only hurts them, but it hurts the program as well. But you have to think about that. Maybe Sharife Cooper, his coaches, his parents, and everybody else who's in there looked at the draft class this year and said, you're set up pretty well to be kind of where you're going to land. Might want to think about doing this year because there's a lot of unknowns about next year in the draft, and we don't know what the rest of the guard positions are going to look like. Was not shocked, Stan says. The dude is about to be a multi-gazillionaire. From what I understand, too, is that his father, I think, is somehow involved with the NBA and draft processes and recruiting and scouting and something like that. So I understand that they are not hurting for money. And I may have that information incorrect, but I believe that was part of the whole NCAA issues, is that they kept trying to look into that because he had certain things that other players didn't have. But yeah, I do think that money is not so much the big thing here. It's longevity. How long can he be successful? When's the right time to go? And if you, like I set up, if you think about it, if he understands what he has the opportunity to accomplish here at Auburn next year versus what he's getting if he doesn't do that, tells you how good his options are over on this end. PA Bucks County, is that what you're saying? Pennsylvania Bucks County? Anyone? I don't know what this has to do with that. Anyone getting MLB The Show? No, I will not be getting MLB The Show. But baseball did get their first SEC win against Arkansas, number 2 Arkansas yesterday, and they're currently, I think, playing right now. So there's that as well. We like to bounce around to some of those other topics as well. So where's your head at with the Sharife Cooper news? Are you I think we're all disappointed to some degree, but do you think that this team is going to be any less successful this upcoming year? I think a lot of it hinges upon who you get at the whole point guard position. That's obviously going to be an important piece to figure out now. It is going to hurt us in terms of depth and longevity at the position because we're not set up really well. We continue to watch the NCAA tournament and watch Davion Mitchell have so much success with Baylor and ask the question, what if? There's a lot of what ifs here on this news story that's breaking today. So, and I asked the poll on Twitter too. I said, were you shocked about this? Most of the people said no. And I asked the specific thing, are you shocked that he's going to the draft, but also having an agent signed? Most people were not shocked whatsoever. So we're living in a time where you should need to get used to this. That really is what it amounts to. Is Auburn is having high success as a program, but putting them into the NBA. So it's something that we're going to have to get accustomed to. So now the next question that we need to ask. So what does Sharife Cooper look like in terms of his NBA draft prospects? What do you think? What round? What place? Share with me right now where you think he's going to land. I'll be honest with you, I haven't looked at the draft class as a whole. I'm not even actually honestly that interested in the NBA outside of following Auburn players. I lost that drive a long time ago. And in fact, I think if you've been here long enough, excuse me, you'll know that I do not like professional sports as a whole pretty much outside of the MLB because, in my opinion, they tend to be a little bit prima donna for the most part. The love for the game is very much still, for now, in college sports, and that's why I tend to put more emphasis on that than the pro. I obviously follow our players once I leave. I support them. I want to see them do well, and vicariously their teams, even if it's a team I don't necessarily have a fondness for. Yeah, so that's kind of what I think there. It's a really good look for the team. Recruits are looking for the best way to get to the NBA. If we are getting players into the NBA consistently, it will make more recruits want to play for us. Absolutely, it will. You don't get Sharife Cooper here. You don't get Jabari Smith here without Chuma Okeke showing them the path. You don't. It just doesn't happen. You don't do it. Sharife Cooper maybe still considers coming. But when he sees Sharife Cooper when Chuma Okeke, I cannot talk today. Chuma Okeke do well and go into the NBA draft the way he did, it shows you something right there. By the way, that Michigan prediction was terrible. Are you talking about my Michigan prediction in terms of being in the Final Four? I mean, they were very close to being in the Final Four, so I don't think it was necessarily terrible. If you picked Ohio State, that's a terrible pick. Of course, you would have had to have foreseen the 15 seed Oral Roberts taking them down in the first round, which was outstanding to watch, by the way. So if you're saying my pick was terrible, I think we have different definitions of what terrible is. Was it the right pick? Absolutely not. But I don't think anybody foresaw UCLA doing what they did. I had a feeling that we were going to have some like one of those teams that's ranked lower this year or positioned lower in the tournament, but it's kind of a traditional power rise up. I just didn't think it was going to be UCLA. I kind of thought it would be Syracuse. It looked like that for a little while. But yeah, definitely UCLA has shocked a lot of people with what they've done. Into the mid-end of the first round. I would say I would agree with you, A. Robinson. I think that's probably where he's going to go. I don't know. I have this feeling, though, that considering all the information, as I've already kind of set up here, with what he anticipates probably going to be available for Auburn to accomplish next year, it had to be something really good. So it feels like he's probably guaranteed the middle rounds. Yeah. Speaking of terrible, Dean is terrible. Dean, I'm not following that one, unfortunately. I'm not sure what you're getting at there, A.E. Robinson, on that one. Maybe it's like over my head right now. Mr. Wavy McGrady, have we seen you before? If you haven't, welcome. Thanks for being here. 2-year and done players is what Auburn needs to go for when going after elite players. I see the point that you're making there. I disagree, though. I think Auburn should go after the best they can get. Because, as we've seen, the best want to come. I think it was A. Robinson, or maybe it was Unbeaten Lake said, players want the quickest route to the NBA, and they're seeing that right now at Auburn. So I don't think you can predict. I mean, you could predict, obviously, but I don't think you can accurately predict who's going to be a two and done player. In an ideal world, that's yes, that would be the best possible thing. But I would say we need to go for whoever the best is out there that we can get for who we need at the time. And I'm not just saying that you go for the number one player because he's the number one player. Because if the number one player is a center and you need a point guard, and you've got four other great centers, okay, like I mean, you didn't help yourself. You actually hurt yourself. So, I don't necessarily disagree with that statement, but just a little caveat on top of that. Oh, you're talking about softball coach. Okay. Well, as you know, A. Robinson, I don't really get into bad mouthing players and coaches here, so we're not going to really address that unless there's something constructive criticism that you have to say about it. And not trying to pick on you, but that's kind of my policy here. Let's see. The guy's a magical player. I would assume mid first round. I'll never watch the NBA again, so unfortunately, I'll never see him play again. Yeah, I don't really sit down to watch NBA games. I'll make sure I stay up what's going on in the playoffs, but I obviously will make sure that I know what's going on with Sharife Cooper now and whichever team that he goes to in terms of things that he's doing, highlights that he's making, and if they were to make an NBA playoffs run, probably would follow it and maybe watch a few games, especially if they're in the championship. Like for instance, I mean, I have traditionally have hatred for the Patriots, but Cam Newton was on there, so I watched a couple of the games, at least pieces of games, because it was Cam Newton. That's where my loyalty sticks with in terms of professional athletes. If you've got an Auburn player, I will pretty much follow you at this point. My loyalty begins and ends with the orange and blue and stays there pretty much the entire time. But yeah, I think somebody said the mid, I think it was A. Robinson said mid to back half of the first round. I think first round's a guarantee. I gotta believe though that he got information that says you're going to go in the top half or right there in the middle for him to take the option to go home. How about this? If you had a percentage confidence that he doesn't actually sign with an agent, where are you at on that? What percentage confidence? To me, it feels pretty solidified. I'd say 90%. Since he's declared it openly and said that this is his intentions. Obviously, people can change their mind as long as they don't sign on the dotted line. But yeah, that could potentially be it there. I'm with you on Auburn pros in the NFL. I actually am traditionally a Packers fan because I have family in Wisconsin, but they burned me a lot because they went for a while. They were nonstop drafting Alabama players, and they burned me a long time ago when they had the option to take Jason Campbell in the draft right before they took Aaron Rodgers. Washington took Jason Campbell in the next pick, which made me very upset. Obviously, it worked out really well for the Packers, so I can't blame them. But as an Auburn fan, it made me really upset that my childhood team that I had a connection to passed on one of my favorite Auburn players at the time. So I've been a little bit burned and jilted since then. But yeah. So, Sharife Cooper being gone obviously changes things, expectations for next year. There's a lot of talent coming in to the team, and I do think that we will still be successful. I think the question is how much. It really depends on what we do in the transfer market for a point guard or something of that nature. Obviously, I think y'all brought up Taiwashington, if that's his real first name. I thought it was Taiwashington, but I guess it's Taiwashington. Pinson from Missouri looks like a good option. It would bring you a lot of stability in a time where you don't have a lot of that at the point guard position, and it would allow you to go find. I don't know how many years he has left, but with a graduate transfer, I would assume he's probably 1 year left. It would allow you at least that year to go find your point guard of the future. But I think there's going to be a premium on that for Coach Pearl and his staff to find the next point guard coming up in the future for the Tigers. But for now, we must find a way to live without him. Been a Bucks fan for over 30 years, so I've enjoyed a few players being there. The Super Bowl wasn't bad either. Yeah, I guess you're having a pretty good year. It was awesome to actually have two players to root for on the Buccaneers this year, Jamil Dean and Carlton Davis, and they are making a case for being some of the best that Auburn has put in the NFL. What's shocking, and we brought this up on previous live streams, is that Auburn became DBU during the Gus Malzahn era. And obviously they've sent people there before and had great, Travaris Robinson was a pretty decent defensive back for the NFL. I think Junior was there for a little bit as well. And Brandon King would count as part of this. But Auburn has become DBU under the Coach Malzahn era, which is just the weirdest thing in the world. But speaks to his ability to find and put into place coaches and find the players you need to be part of this. Neil brings up a great point here. So on a previous live stream, we talked about, because there was speculation out there for the Texas job that Coach Pearl was being attached to it, which we didn't take seriously, honestly. But I pose the question, is there a team out there that could pull Coach Pearl away? Now, with Sharife leaving, that might throw a little bit of gas on that fire of that type of conversation, because maybe he knows something you don't, right? Don't think that's why he went. I think there's much more bigger reasons for him to go other than potential Coach Pearl leaving. But there is some speculation, out there that he would leave for a UT or UNC. Now, Neil, I don't remember if you were there for that live stream, but if you're talking about Tennessee, UT's already been filled by Chris Beard, I believe. Tennessee is basically just not an option for him at this point. And I think it's one of those things where, I hate to use this analogy, but it's almost like you had a messy divorce that you finally reconciled with each other, and it's kind of like you're able to come see each other at family events or something like that, or public events, and be cordial and stuff like that. And there's that fondness there, but it's like we can't do that again to each other. So Tennessee, I do not fear. UNC, however, if you're a premier basketball coach and you don't at least consider that job, that's tough. That's a tough. Texas, not Tennessee. Well, Texas, I believe, has been filled by Chris Beard, so that's not an option. The team that I thought that was going to be any potentially one day to take a Coach Pearl away from us, maybe like an Indiana, because he has some roots up there. It's one of those traditional powers that hasn't been consistently great all the time as of late. Coach Pearl could do wonders with that. But thankfully that's been filled by someone, so that's not an option. So I don't really foresee that. Asking, yes, if Sharife leaving is an indicator of him leaving. I don't think so. Personally, I think there are bigger reasons that Sharife Cooper would leave. It simply is just he got some good information that he's going to do well in the draft as of this point. Stan asks, any word on the hunt for the women's basketball coach? Great question. I'm going to look here in my... I have my contact that usually gives me a lot of information. Let's see here. There's no really front runner or anything like that. Shonda Rigby, for the longest time, is one of those. I don't know who she's part of. Let's see. Anyway. There's not really much coming out in terms of that. I think most of the speculation is that we will get a coach that's currently participating or has just finished up participating in the NCAA women's tournament. And that's where I would go if I was the athletic director. We need a proven winner at a higher-ish level. Like if we go, no offense, but I think a lot of people were high on the Troy basketball coach. Obviously, if they came here, I would accept them and support them. But I don't necessarily think that's the route we need to go. I think we would need to go through a coach that's had some proven success and at a higher level than Troy. Just personal feelings. UNC is a blue blood and could have any basketball coach they want. Absolutely. When UNC opens up a coaching search in basketball, it is not who do you think might come. It's who wouldn't want to come. They have, if there's not an agent in college basketball that is not contacting UNC about the prospect of that coach becoming their next head coach, he is not doing his job right now. I mean, I think the only other programs that have an argument to be in that category are like a Kentucky, a Kansas. Basically, that would be the ones that I throw into that category. But UNC, Duke, obviously. But UNC is like one of the end all be all. So if Coach Pearl's agent has not reached out to just entertain that option, Coach Pearl needs to get a new agent. It is something that needs to happen. But is that an indication that something's going wrong with Coach Pearl, that Sharife Cooper's leaving? I would say no. I don't think you have much to worry about on that front. So, women's basketball, I do not have major updates for you. But yeah, Shonda Rigby is the only name that I've seen thrown out there. I would much prefer that we go out and get someone with some proven success. I know a lot of people want Coach Champy to come back and coach. I don't think you're going to see that. If DeWanna Bonner was not still killing it in the WNBA, I'd say let's get a former player in here and be the coach. I think North Carolina will go after someone young. Bruce may be coaching for the next 10, 15 years, but I think they would be looking for a coach who will be coaching longer. Fair point. I think that's a great way to look at that, especially because they would want to do what Roy Williams did for them. I know he was not just there; he was at Kansas too. But I think they are a program that works off of stability, which is something that I love. Something I wish our football program would learn to do with deal with the ups and downs. And not listen to the whims of people being upset that we don't win 10 games more than they think we should. I know I just stirred some people up with that comment. It's gonna happen now. I know it is. I would put Gonzaga, Villanova, Baylor coaches at the top of my list in terms of who's going to go to UNC. Is that what you're saying? Gonzaga guy has actually. They even talked about it on one of the games about how he's been asked and had plenty of opportunities to go places that he deserves to be at, and he's turned them down. To me, if that's what we're talking about, the Gonzaga coach, I think, doesn't need to leave where he's at. I mean, he is the guy that's put Gonzaga on the map, and they look poised to do good things for a long time. So I wouldn't go anywhere if I was him. Baylor, sure, I think you could probably do better than Baylor, no offense. Villanova, maybe. I think Villanova is another Gonzaga type of situation where you can make a name for yourself, even though they have a little bit of history with them. So I would say Villanova, maybe. Baylor, though, I could definitely see someone leaving to go somewhere else. I think there was a name, I'm trying to remember, that was up and coming recently. That could be a potential for the UNC, but I haven't seen that. But anyway, that's kind of what I think about all that right there. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to round out our time here. As always, I'm going to share some things with you here real quick. Last minute comments, questions about anything Sharife Cooper, other Auburn stuff, or non-Auburn stuff. Go ahead and put it in there, and we can talk about that if you'd like. Here it is, the support card. If you haven't, please check out some of these links. They're in the very top of the chat window. Very top. You have to go all the way up there. But also in the description for this video. The big things are the Booster Club. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month. Help support the content that we produce here on this channel, but primarily on our podcast network. Get some cool perks with that as well. And there are some different ones at different levels, but it's easy to get in for $1. PayPal, you can do that as well. Easy one-time donations and things like that. TeePublic Store, you can get yourself some gear that helps support us and an independent artist. The big thing, though, that I want to share with you today, not only the podcast, but more specifically, this single podcast feed. So we have our main feed, which I put the links up there as well, where it says listen to the podcast. But we've created a separate one where you can get just Auburn Roots. Auburn Roots is on the main feed with everything on it because we're a network. We have multiple podcasts. The one that is pinned to the top of the chat window is Auburn Roots. We have 27 episodes now of people sharing their personal Auburn stories. What makes them, how they became an Auburn fan, stories they want to share. All unique, all special, all different perspectives. Coach Sonny Smith has episode 15. Jairus McIntyre is episode 25. Episode 1 is Dee Ford, the British lady. And then everyone else in between, people that I know personally, members of the network. You don't want to miss this series. Episode 27 came out today with Cindy Terry, who is one of the individuals that helped create the banner that you see at Tiger Walk. So you don't want to miss that story. So I hope you'll go check that out and obviously subscribe there as well if you'd like to. And then if you can leave us an Apple review on iTunes. That is very helpful to do as well. All those are available. And thank you for those of you that have hit the like button if you enjoyed this content. Last minute comments, questions, derogatory rebuttal about what we discussed here today. I appreciate all of y'all's patience and dealings with the different setup and headgear. I will be on the road for the next couple of days, and we will utilize this format in some way if there's some big news that needs to be discussed. But there's a lot going on. Now we turn our attention. Sharife Cooper watch is done. We move our attention to what will Auburn do now at the point guard position, and that's all eyes are on the transfer market as of this point. And that's a lot of people who were speculating that's what we were going to do at the end of the season before Sharife Cooper announced anything. Now you can turn your attention to that because that is definitely what's going to happen. Pinson, looking at you. You know you want out of Missouri. Come on over here and be an Auburn Tiger. I think that'd be a great option. Let's see. I think we got a couple of, my AU story in a nutshell, born into it, 3 generations of Auburn grads in story. So Neil, let me just share this with you real quick. I don't want to belabor this point here, but I can't tell you how many times I've asked someone to be featured on Auburn Roots, and they have every time said almost verbatim what you just said. There's nothing to my Auburn story. I was born in it, 3 generations of A grade. I think if you listen to the podcast series, you'll understand every time someone has said that to me, they've had these great stories to tell. So don't think that your Auburn story is not special. It is. Everybody's got a unique perspective, things to share and talk about, because that's what the whole show is about, is just learning about your Auburn family member. So one day you might be able to. There are a couple ways you can get onto Auburn Roots. You can be nominated by a previous interviewee. Sometimes we might reach out to a particular person. Signing up in the Booster Club, another quick plug for that, at the lowest level, $1 a month, automatically makes you eligible, or you get to pick someone for us to have on in the future as your choice. So potentially there's some ways that you can do that, but don't think that your story isn't special. Maybe one day we'll be telling yours. Coach Calipari to UNC. Oh, you know what? I didn't even think about that. Mr. Wavy. That is a great point, and I think that is probably a high possibility. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know though. It'd be kind of similar that Kansas had Roy Williams poached away from them for UNC, and it kind of shows you the pecking order in college basketball, doesn't it? So if that happens to Kentucky, we will definitely see what the true pecking order is. I think that puts UNC both ahead of those programs in terms of where coaches ultimately want to be. And I don't think that should be a shock to anybody. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not. I think it was Unbeaten Lake said it. They're going to go for someone probably younger, longevity, stability. That's what every program needs. So potentially that's what you could see happening with that. But it'd be interesting, wouldn't it? And in a time where Auburn basketball as a program is rising, it would kind of set Kentucky back a little bit, because Nate Oates would probably go to Kentucky. How funny would it be to see Nate Oates go to an open spot at Kentucky and just jilt Alabama? That would be the most amazing thing ever. I would enjoy that every day and twice on Sunday. Alabama fans know they're on borrowed time with Nate Oates, and you can see how much it bugs them. Absolutely bugs them. Every school Calipari has ended, coaches end up in probation. It does seem that way. If you don't think that there isn't some shady business going on any school, you're blind. But I would definitely say the trend there obviously has something to it with Calipari. So if UNC wants to have success, but then have probation, Calipari's your guy. So anyway, thank y'all so much for being here. Stay tuned, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know then when we are live again. If we do go live again this weekend, like I said, I'll be on the road and stuff like that. But anyway, real quick here, he said, side note, I lived in Memphis when Cal coached. He was royalty, and then when he left, probation. There you go, UNC. That's what you have to expect if you get Calipari. Thank you guys so much for being here. Smash the like button on the way out. Until I talk to you again, War Eagle.